Muito bem. Então, queria agradecer quem está aqui com a gente aqui na sessão. E queria agradecer também a professora Rita, que se disponibilizou a fazer essa live para a gente. A professora Rita Köster, ela possui mestrado em letras no programa de estudos linguísticos e literários em inglês pela USP e especialização em literaturas de língua inglesa também pela USP. Possui bacharelado e licenciatura em língua e literatura inglesa pela PUC São Paulo e tem atuado na área de ensino e aprendizagem de língua estrangeira desde 1986. E seu foco de interesse está na literatura irlandesa, com ênfase no teatro irlandês contemporâneo. So now I'm going to switch to English. And thank you so much, Rita, for being here with us today. And I hope you guys enjoy this talk on Irish theater.
Okay, so thank you so much for inviting me, Cássia. I'm going to share my presentation with you, share the slides here. Great. Can you see the slides?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay, so thank you for inviting me, and thank you so much for being here in this presentation. Hi, hello, Claudio. Nice to see you.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Hello, I was missing you. Okay.
Me too.
Anyway, the title of this talk is The Supernatural in Contemporary Irish Drama. And I was very happy to talk about something that I really, really like, which is Irish theater. So before I start talking about the topic, I'm going to explain a little bit the title of this presentation. So maybe most of you already know what I'm going to talk about, but just to remind everyone. So first of all, let's think about Ireland. Okay, so over here I have a map of two islands, this big one and this small one. All right, so over here I have Scotland, England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK, the United Kingdom. And the green part here is just the Republic of Ireland. I've got another map of Ireland for you to see in a better way. So when we talk about Irish theater, Irish writers, we talk about Ireland, but we also talk about Northern Ireland. All right, although they are part of the UK, when we talk about Irish writers, we include Northern Ireland as well. All right. Well, but today I'm going to talk specifically about one dramatist, Conor Macpherson, who was born in Dublin, the capital of Ireland. Okay, just as a complement, the capital of Northern Ireland is Belfast, the capital of Scotland is Edinburgh, the capital of England is London, and the capital of Wales is Cardiff. So my title was The Supernatural in Contemporary Irish Drama. So for Irish, we have to understand Ireland and more specifically Dublin, where Conor Macpherson was born. Now, let's think about the other part of the title, drama, theater. So the first dramatist that I'd like to mention to you is Samuel Beckett. Why did I choose Samuel Beckett? Because for me and for most schoolers, Samuel Beckett is one of the most important playwrights in modern and postmodern theater. Uh, some Sometimes we can say that there is theater before Samuel Beckett and after Samuel Beckett. He was Irish, and here I have a book cover of one of his most famous plays, Waiting for Godot. You might have heard of this play. But as I told you, there is theater before Samuel Beckett. So I'm going to give you two Irish writers that probably you know, but you didn't know that they were Irish. Oscar Wilde, most people think that he's English, but he's not. He's Irish. And this is the play that I like most by him, The Importance of Being Earnest. In this play, he makes fun of the English people. Okay, it's a very funny comedy. I think if you read this play or if you watch this play, you are gonna like. So Oscar Wilde appeared before Samuel Beckett and also Bernard Shaw. Probably you don't know this play Pygmalion, but you might have heard of the film My Fair Lady, in which the filmmaker based or inspired his work in this play called Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw. And he was Irish as well before Samuel Beckett. And then let's go a little bit earlier because I talked about drama, I talked about Irish drama, and now let's go a little bit earlier to see the other part of the title, the supernatural. So here I've got a book cover by Lady Gregory. Lady Gregory, she was responsible for traveling around Ireland and listening to legends and Irish folklore in Irish language. And then she translated into English and published in books like this, Irish Mythology, to preserve the culture. Lady Gregory, with Yeats, William Butler Yeats, they use all this Irish folklore, which is full of mythology, which is full of supernatural elements, to get inspired to write plays and also stories about the this elements of with elements of the supernatural. Did you get it? Okay. And one more thing I would like to tell you before I start. It is the importance of storytelling for the Irish people. So, one of the most notable Irish traditions is the art of storytelling. Can you see the bonfire and people around the bonfire? Here they are telling each other stories about supernatural, stories about the folklore. And during medieval times, one could get a full time job as a storyteller. This figure of the storyteller was so important that the person would go from village to village, would be well received, sit in the best place, receive the best food, just to tell stories. So the art of storytelling is important. And one more character that I think you might know, but I don't know if you know that this character came from Ireland. It is Dracula. You know Bela Lugosi, who played Dracula around 1931. And but Dracula was this film was actually based on a book by Bram Stoker, who was Irish and wrote Dracula. Later on, I am going to tell you who Bram Stoker based his Dracula. Okay, but this is important. Vampire is also important in our talk. Why? Because now the talk is going to start. Okay, I'm going to read about Saint Nicholas. I'm going to tell you about Saint Nicholas, which is a play by Conor McPherson. So we are going to having here together a reading of the play. We are not going to read the play, of course, but I will tell you some things about the play, and I will follow this agenda here. So I'll talk about Conor McPherson, his life and work. I'm telling you a little bit about the supernatural in relation to the vampire myth, and then I'll be talking about black humor. The format of the play, which is a monologue, and by the end of the our conversation here, I'll be telling you about the importance of storytelling for Conor McPherson. All right? Okay, so let's start by taking a look at Conor McPherson. Very Irish. Well, he used to have red hair. Let's put it like that. Okay, but anyway, he was born on August 6, 1971. So now he's 53 years old. When I first started studying him, he was kind of 38, 39. And as I told you, he was born in Dublin, in Ireland. He was educated at University College Dublin and he finished his graduation in 1988. He studied philosophy and English and he liked the university so much that he started doing his master course there and he finished his master's, he got his master's degree in 1993. This is the name of his, well, there they don't call it dissertation, they call it thesis, master thesis. Okay, I had the opportunity to look at his thesis and I couldn't understand a word. It's very, very complicated, but anyway, while he was studying at University College in Dublin, he was very much into theater. So he joined this drama SOC, which is a theater group. And during this time, he wrote those three plays, taking stock, Michelle Pfeiffer, foreplay, sorry, Scenes Federal, and Inventing Fortune's Wheel. He never published these plays. He said that they are not good enough, but that was the way he started. And after a while, he founded with a group of friends another theater group called Fly By Night. And then he wrote and directed some more plays that he never published, but the interesting aspect was that those plays they were performed in Dublin at the International Bar. It was during lunchtime, they would have lunch and then they start their play. Everybody was having lunch and watching the play at the same time. Sometimes they had some theater critics, especially from London, and it was in one of those occasions that a theater critic spotted Conor McPherson and invited him to go to London and work there. And then from now on, he was a successful writer. Okay. Nowadays, although he is not well recognized in Brazil, he is considered one of the best contemporary Irish playwrights. His plays have attracted good reviews and have been performed internationally, mainly in West End in London and Broadway, New York. He lives in Dublin with his wife. His wife is a painter and a composer and they have a little girl who they adopt in 2011. And in 2013, he received the Doctor of Literature degree honoris causa. So he's pretty much important. Anyway, those are some of his plays that he has already published and put on stage. Okay, the last one here, which is it's not the last one, but it is the one who is being going on at the moment, is The Girl from the North Country. It's a musical with the songs by Bob Dylan. It was Bob Dylan himself who called him and asked him to choose, pick up some of his songs and try to put it in a musical. But he's also he works with cinema as well. So far, he has either wrote or directed or both these films. I Went Down, Endgame, which is a film based on Beckett's play, Saltwater, The Actors, and The Eclipse. The Eclipse also has traces of the supernatural. Okay, there is nothing to do with Twilight, And at the moment, he's working on transposing to stage the first book of the Hunger Games. And he also wrote the script for this play Cold War, which was based on a film. Okay, but I haven't read this one yet. Okay, let me talk about some of the plays before we go into the St. Nicholas. Rum and Vodka and St. Nicholas, in terms of form, they are similar. Why? Yeah, Cássia. Yes, it's gonna. There will be a play. There will be a play. Yes, it might be nice. It might be nice. But anyway, Rum and Vodka and Saint Nicholas, they are similar in terms of form because you have one actor on the bare stage. You don't have anything on the stage, and this actor is talking to the audience. So it's monologue. Those two plays here, this Lime Three Bauer and Port Authority, you also have monologues, but then you don't have only one actor, but you have three actors telling the same story, but with different stuff, okay? And The Weir and Shining City, they are examples of play in which you have actors having a dialogue. But then, in the middle of the dialogue, they start telling stories. So, what we have in common among those plays is storytelling. Okay, so let's start with St. Nicholas. St. Nicholas was first performed on February 19th in 1997, and it was produced by Bush Theatre in London at the time that Conor McPherson was a writer in residence there. It means he was hired to produce plays for this theater. Okay, let me play for you a bit of the beginning of the play. Okay, I think there are 2 minutes only. Okay. Oops. Oh no, sorry. I have to. I'm sorry, guys. I thought it was going to work, but I need to copy the link here. Just a moment. Oh no, great. Let me get it here.
When I was a boy, I was afraid of the dark. What was there? And maybe one of the things I thought was there was vampires. Oh, I don't know, I can't remember now. But like all of us, whatever ideas I had about them, it's probably all the superstitious bullshit we get in books and fiction. But that was nothing like the real thing. Like anything, the real thing is a lot more ordinary.
Okay, so let me stop sharing this and go back to my presentation. Just a moment. Okay. Oh, now it's working. Now that I don't want to, never mind. Okay, so let me give you a kind of a summary of the plot so you can understand what I am talking about. So, this guy that you saw, he is the only actor on the stage, he is a theater critic. And he's married, he's got two children. He doesn't get along with his children. Okay, his wife and children, they only talk to him to ask money, but he is a very well known theater critic, and he's also uh, um, he has prestige among the community. He lives in Dublin, and one day he goes to a play. He writes his review, his theater review, saying bad things about the play. Even not having finished watching the play, he writes a bad review. But then, on the second act of the play, he sees Helen, an actress, dancing. She is playing Salome in the play that he's watching, and he falls in love with her. He goes home and he is worried about the fact that he has sent the bad review to the newspaper, and she's going to read this bad review. So he invents something in his head. Oh, I'm going to tell them that I was forced to write this bad review, but she was wonderful, blah, 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 blah. He ends up knowing that this theater group is going to London to perform the same play. So he goes to London following this group, especially Helen. And when he is in a park, he is completely drunk. He is a terrible person. He sees something coming towards him. He doesn't know if it is an animal, a huge dog, or even a wolf, but then he noticed that it is a man. And this man is called William, and William is a vampire. William invites him to stay in his house in order to do some work for him. He is supposed to go to pubs and parties to select some young people to go to William's house, William's place, where there are other vampires living, and those people are going to become their victims. So the theater the theater critic, he is responsible for gathering these victims into William's place. And by the end of the story, by the end of the play, he runs away, he escapes, he manages to go back to London. But the more important fact is that now he has a story to tell. Because before that, what he does, he writes about other people's performance. He doesn't write about his own story. All right, so it's very interesting, it's very curious. Reading the play is much better than listen to me talking about it. But you you're going to like it. Let's go on. So take a look at the beginning. He says, "But this was before I met the vampire, before I worked for them, before I had to fight for anything. It was a girl that got me into trouble unintentionally. It was my fault." So, after reading this passage, we can infer that he was completely lost. He is sort of in love with this girl, but he knows that it was not her fault. That she doesn't even know who he is. She doesn't care about him. But he falls in love with the girl while he's watching her playing a role. So the thing is, does he fall in love with the actress or with the character? That's the point. By the way, do you know anything about the play Salome? No? Let me tell you very briefly, okay? So, Salome is a play by Oscar Wilde. This play was based on a passage from the Bible. The passage is very, very small. It's a passage in which Salome asks the king, the head of John Baptista, because she doesn't like him. He loves Salome. He wants Salome to dance for him, and he says, "Well, you can ask anything, and I'll give you even half of my kingdom." But then she asks for the head of another person. So she asks the king to murder for her, so that's horrible. And the play is about that. Take a look at this scene of Salome, how terrible it is. You have the head over here, all the blood, so the guy is dead, all right? So, what is the relationship between Helen and Salome? Helen is just the actress who played Salome, and in a sort of way, her dancing kind of lured the theater critic, as if Salome dancing was very important for the king. So that's why he says it was he said that it was a girl who put him into trouble, just like Salome put the king into trouble. All right? Well, let's go on. And now let's go to the vampire thing. So, as I told you before, Bram Stoker was Irish and rewrote Dracula. But before writing Dracula, he wrote a short story called Dracula's Guest. This short story he didn't publish while he was alive. This short story was published only after his death. He was already very famous by having written Dracula, but then his wife published Dracula's Guest, which is a sort of a pre Dracula. Okay, it was sort of a draft for Dracula. But how did he manage to write Dracula's Guest? He read another short story called The Vampire, written by John William Polidori. And this short story was written during the time that Polidori, Mary Shelley, the girl who wrote Frankenstein, and Percy Shelley, they were spending some time in the house of this guy here. This guy is Lord Byron. So imagine you have a weekend at Lord Byron's house, and then it was raining a lot, and they decide to have a contest. So let's see who is able to write the most horrible supernatural story or horror short story. And Polidori wrote this short story, The Vampire, and Mary Shelley wrote the beginning of Frankenstein, or the draft of Frankenstein. Imagine. And until today, Dracula, which was based on the vampire, and Frankenstein, they are very up to date supernatural creatures, characters, very important characters. But anyway, there were vampires before this short story, The Vampire. We can say that there were, for example, Nosferatu, which is the vampire, the German myth. All right, but anyway, what happened is that Polidori, he was the first one to create a kind of the aristocratic vampire, the one who wears. Remember, I showed you let me go back to that picture here where I showed you the vampire with the cape here, like an aristocratic guy. Why? Because he used Lord Byron as an inspiration. And Lord Byron, he used to wear those long capes and coat to cover one of his legs that was, shorter than the other. You know, Literary gossip are easy. Oh, let me stop this again. Sorry. Great. Okay, so where I am. Ah, yes. So we can read the display as if it is a parody of the vampire myth. But what is a parody? Here I have the definition of Linda Hutchin. She wrote this book, A Theory of Parody, The Teachings of the 20th Century Art Forms. And she says, parody implies imitation and transformation. Parody is repetition with critical investigation. Just to summarize, I think this is better for you to understand. So, when we talk about parody, we talk about repetition with critical distance. We talk about inversion of meaning. So, we talk about certain or traces of irony. We talk about the important differences that we find rather than the similarities. And there are also details that might be exaggerated, just like caricature. And that's exactly what Conor McPherson did in St. Nicholas. Take a look, for example, in this passage when you have the beginning of the supernatural coming into his the theater critic life. So you have over here, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my study with the windows open, the summer breeze, and I thought about killing myself. I could imagine the cast reading the review I had actually given them, talking about what a complete I was. And then they would find out that I was dead and they would feel rotten. Remember that I told you that he had written a bad review and he was worried about that? Well, that they hadn't taken into account the integrity, the mystery that I was. But I was too chicken for that. It means he was too coward to kill himself. Instead, I lay on the sofa and things crawled over me till it got bright. Well, I wasn't the same after that. So here, when you have things crawled all over me, they are coming from the open windows, just like in Dracula, when you have a bat come inside Lucy's bedroom through the window. All right. So these supernatural elements that in the beginning of the play, they are sort of foreshadow to what is happening in the second part of the play. So another thing that happens when he shake hands with Helen, her hands are very cold. William, when he finds William in the park, it is also a trace of the supernatural. And then when he describes the house of the vampires, they as if he is describing, for instance, a coffin, because you have the house is completely red with traces of black, as if he is inside a tomb or something like that. Okay. Anyway, but it is a parody because it is not just imitation of Dracula, but it's imitation with humor, and we can call it with black humor. Let's try to define black humor before I show you where black humor is in the play. So, black humor is humor marked by the use of morbid, ironic, sometimes some grotesque episodes. Okay, so you can find a character who is disoriented, just like our theater critic. We can find a character who has lost his confidence, just like him. You can find lack of order, you can find disorder, you can find satirical elements. Okay, so most of the traces of Black human definition you find in St. Nicholas. I have a part here in which one of the vampire girls uh, bites the theater critic. And then I told you that he drinks a lot throughout the play, so he is completely drunk. And he says, and then this stupid cow bit me. There was blood all down my shirt, down my pants. Only consolation I had was she might get a hangover that would knock her off her feet for days. She had bitten the wrong fellow. So in this case, he is making fun of, well, he was bitten by a vampire, but he doesn't care. And he has, well, oh, she might have bitten me, but then no problem. She's going to get a hangover. All right. So it is funny when you see or when you read in the context. It is funny because it's awkward. All right. Great. Now, another theater critic called Ben Brantley, this really exists. Okay, he saw the play in 1998, 1 year before the play was performed, and he said there was life before the vampires and there was life after the vampires. What does he want to tell us with that? Well, this play, St. Nicholas, we can read it as a metaphor. So even before living with the vampires, the protagonist, the theater critic, was a kind of vampire himself because he was feeding himself of the art of the others. He could never produce his own story. He wasn't able to write his own story. So he was only criticizing people's work. So a vampire gets blood of human beings. The critic writes about the art of the others. So, in this sense, blood and art are symbols of life. And we can see this character in St. Nicholas, this theater critic, being a metaphor for the vampire. He was the vampire himself, feeding from the art of the others. I think this is nice. But then let's come to the big question. Why the title of the play is Saint Nicholas? Who is Saint Nicholas? You might have heard of Santa Claus or Saint Nicholas, who was a bishop, if I'm not mistaken, from Myra, and he was responsible to give gifts for children. He was a nice guy, worried about other people. So it is also an ironic title. In the beginning of the play, he says something like this: I was the educated friend of the masses who read me, protecting them from these artist charlatans who were trying to rob their money. So he thought that he was a good guy because he was protecting people, or prevented them from going to the theater and watching bad plays. So in a way he thought, oh, I am a Saint Nicholas. I am helping these poor people who does not know how to tell good for bad things. Okay, so which is also ironic. And Macpherson gave an interview after he put this play on stage, that he was very worried about the first performance because there were lots of theater critics inside the audience. So imagine you will go to a play, you are a theater critic, and you are going to watch a play about a man who is actually doing this. So it's kind of fun. And now let's talk about the form of the play. The form of the play is monologue. And here I come to, I use Pirandello. It is in Portuguese because I don't have it in English. And actually, it is in Italian. but I don't have any Italian as well, and I don't know how to speak Italian, but anyway, por uma convenção tácita, admite-se no teatro que todo o discurso das personagens é ação falada. So, speaking is the same as doing. The spoken sentences, they correspond to the action of the play. So, speaking in the theater as if the character is doing an action. St. Nicholas is a monologue. Nothing happens on the stage in terms of action. However, the theater critic's speech, what he says, is full of action. All right? And there is another scholar. This is, you might have studied him, teatro pós-dramático, Cássia, because he is German, I guess, you know. And then he wrote something quite interesting. Traço essencial do teatro pós-dramático é o princípio da narração. O teatro se torna o lugar de ato de contar. And then we can link this to the fact of storytelling and the importance of storytelling for the Irish people. Another theater critic wrote something, I have a story, therefore I am. He thinks that Conor McPherson always think about the story and then he builds up everything. But the most important thing is telling the story. And Claire Wallace, she studies monologue. Most of her studies are connected to monologue. She says, the words which are to do the work rather than the spectacle of the stage design or the character's action. So the words are more important than what's actually happening on the stage. And that's exactly what happens with the theater critic. When he finishes the story, he says, well, I'm going back to Dublin. So on the right track again, yeah? I would embrace my second chance. I would do a piece about getting back in touch with things. So can you see here, embrace my second chance, getting back in touch with things. You can even see that there are capital letters as if they are titles of a story. So he finishes his play telling that now he has got what is most important for living, a story of his own to tell the others. He doesn't need to live out of the story of the others. Hi, guys. I need some water. I'm sorry. Well, these are some of the references. Thank you for listening to me. This is my email in case you don't have. And if you like a little bit Irish literature as much as I like it, there will be a course with Cátedra Yates and USP. The name of the course is Estudos Irlandeses em Diálogo, Seminário Internacional Latino-Americano. There will be lots of interesting teachers talking about Irish literature, Irish history. This course will be online on Wednesdays from midday to 1:40. It starts in August, more precise, the 7th of August, and it finishes on the 27th of November. If you want to participate, just write to my email and give me your full name, and I can put you on the list. I hope you like my...
And that course is free of charge, right?
Oh, yes, it is. You don't have to pay anything.
You don't have to pay anything, and you, para quem é nosso aluno, vocês precisam fazer as horas de ACC. Esse curso vale como horas de ACC, certo, Rita? E aí esse curso tem uma estrutura bem legal, que é, por exemplo, como a Rita é especialista em Conor McPherson, quando for o dia desse autor, é ela que vai dar aula.
Então, vão
assim
ser módulos.
Então, mas aí cada módulo, cada aula é um professor diferente, não é isso?
Professor diferente de uma universidade diferente. Então, vai ter professores da América Latina inteira, né? Especialista em cada área. Então, são 3, por exemplo, são 3 aulas referente ao módulo de história. Depois tem mais 3 aulas referente a cinema e literatura, teatro e literatura, entendeu? Depois eu passo o programa direitinho, é que o programa não está ainda completo, com todos os títulos de todas as aulas, a gente só tem quem vai dar aonde, mas é bastante interessante, acho que vocês vão gostar muito, se vocês gostam de Irish Literature, se alguém já leu alguma coisa.
Eu vou mandar um e-mail para todo mundo, e aí vocês têm essa informação no e-mail. Mas acho que para quem puder, porque a gente sabe que o horário não é um horário que todos podem, mas para quem puder, é uma oportunidade legal. And the course is going to be in English, right, Rita?
Not necessarily. It will be in 3 languages, actually. English, Spanish, and Portuguese, okay? So, é no horário do almoço, exactly. Mas eu vou ficar no horário do almoço. But the thing is, by the end of the course, if you have like 75% of attendance, you get a certificate by Cátedra William Butler Yeats, which is linked to USP. Essa cátedra, ela é da USP, então vocês vão ter um certificado bacana aí para colocar no CV, né?
Eu acho que para quem pensa em depois fazer mestrado, por exemplo, é uma coisa legal de ter, né?
De conhecer as pessoas, acho legal, acho bacana. E é bacana que cada um vai falar daquilo que tem paixão, né? Assim, você viu, eu fico até sem voz aqui, mas... Ai!
Gente, eu queria saber se alguém tem alguma pergunta para a Rita sobre a palestra dela. Eu queria fazer um comentário, então, se vocês me permitem, a gente tem uns minutinhos ainda. Por favor, Jane.
Como sempre, eu.
Jane, bem-vinda.
Eu acho, não sei se é exatamente uma pergunta, mas vamos lá. A Rita estava falando bastante dele, né? E eu estava me lembrando muito do Alan Poe.
Sim, nossa.
Entra nessa pegada também, né?
Com certeza. Alan Poe é americano, né? Ele vem antes, muito antes, obviamente, de Conor McPherson, porque o Conor McPherson está vivo, né? Mas por ter estudado inglês, o Conor McPherson com certeza leu Edgar Allan Poe, não sabe? E tem muitos traços, não só nessa peça, como em outras também, né? Que a gente encontra Edgar Allan Poe assim nas peças dele. É muito legal, é muito bacana. Nossa, tem contos do Edgar Allan Poe maravilhosos, assim.
Recentemente eu assisti um filme que... No filme, eu vou até assistir de novo, porque depois eu fiquei confusa. Não, é verdade. No filme, o Alan Poe, não a pessoa em si, mas o personagem é o próprio Alan Poe, sabe? Então, assim, eu assisti 2 vezes e ainda falei, não, eu preciso assistir uma terceira, porque ele é bem assim, pelo fato dele estar participando e pela história toda que o Poe ele faz, então ficou bem bacana, assim. E você falando dele, eu falei assim, nossa, gente, eu vou ter que ler os livros, porque...
Você vai gostar. Se você gosta dessa pegada de Supernatural, ele não faz só Supernatural, mas tem muita coisa bacana, muita coisa bacana. O meu favorito, na verdade, não é nem o St. Nicholas, é The Weir, que eles estão num pub, talking to each other, and out of the blue they start telling each other horror stories. So it's really, really good.
Eu fiquei pensando, Rita, a hora que você estava contando da peça, porque no Diário de Dorian Gray, do Oscar Wilde, também tem isso, né? Tipo, o Dorian vai no teatro e se apaixona pela personagem.
Pela personagem, não. Tanto é que quando ela para de interpretar, acabou o amor, né?
Exato. Então, aí ele vai atrás da menina, inferniza a menina até conseguir ficar com ela. Aí quando fica com ela, tipo, não, mas acho que eu tava apaixonada porque era Shakespeare, que ela tava...
Shakespeare.
Tipo, quem
E
não se
cada...
apaixonaria, né? Pela Ofélia, sei lá.
Pela Ofélia, né? Ele se apaixona porque ela podia trocar de roupas, né? Trocar de personagens. Toda ela mesma perdeu a graça, né?
Eu acho isso muito legal na literatura, quando você consegue ver traços de uma obra em outra obra, enfim. E eu também acho muito fascinante, porque como no mestrado, pessoal, eu também estudei literatura, só que meu autor era, sei lá, do século XVIII. E a Rita estudou um autor que está vivo.
Mas você acredita que eu não consegui falar com ele? Essa é a minha tristeza. Eu queria ter falado com ele. Fui até Dublin, mas ele não estava. Ele estava nos Estados Unidos. Mas um dia ainda vou falar.
Bom, pessoal, eu queria de novo agradecer a Rita por essa hora muito enriquecedora para a gente. Espero que vocês saiam inspirados para conhecer um pouco mais de literatura irlandesa. Queria agradecer vocês também que estão aqui numa sexta-feira à noite, no final do semestre. Queria dizer que eu estou fechando as notas de vocês, então aos poucos eu estou adicionando as notas no sistema. Eu vou tentar fazer uma coisa assim, fiquem tranquilos, tá? Não estou dizendo que é ninguém que está aqui nessa sala comigo. Mas se alguém estiver devendo alguma coisa, tipo, esqueci de fazer uma prova, eu estou mandando e-mails para vocês, então fiquem tranquilos que vai dar tudo certo, certo? Sem pânico no final do semestre. E é isso, gente. Obrigada. E a gente
Obrigada, gente. Espero que não tenha bored you.
Bye, bye. Também as histórias. Fiquei bem curiosa, pra falar a verdade.
Ai, que bom, Rebeca. Que bom.
Fiquei muito curiosa. Que eu não
Dicas pro clube do livro, hein?
Sim. Entra, Rebeca, pro clube.
Eu queria entrar. Eu até fiquei pensando assim, mas eu falei, e agora? Será que eu vou dar conta?
Agora entra em agosto. Entra em agosto. Vai dar tempo.
Tá bom.
Eu aviso para vocês por e-mail a data do Clube do Livro, que acontece aos sábados, né? Então, não sei se todo mundo aqui sabe, mas a Giane, a Paula participa também, não participa do Clube do Livro?
Desculpa, sábado que horas?
É das 11 ao meio-dia, mas não é todo sábado, é a cada 15 dias, tá?
Então beleza. Assim.
Porque você tem que ter tempo de ler, né?
Sim, então.
Agora, para esse semestre, está acabando, né? Vai acabar semana que vem. Então, para quem é do EAD, provavelmente eu vou escrever um e-mail para vocês explicando que data que começa e sempre o livro escolhido é um livro que vocês podem ler em português ou em inglês. Sempre é um livro em inglês que tem tradução, né? Então, aí a pessoa escolhe. E as discussões, eu acho que elas tendem mais a ser em português, né, Rita?
As discussões são em português. Às vezes a gente fala um pouquinho de inglês, mas na verdade a ideia não é a língua em si, é só falar do livro, e quem quiser ler em inglês, quem não quiser ler em português, às vezes está mais barato o livro em português, a gente vai indo conforme, né?
Sim. Mas é isso, gente. Então, vocês vão receber essas informações por e-mail em breve, fiquem atentos no e-mail de vocês semana que vem, e bom fim de semana. Tchau, tchau. Um beijo.
Tchau. Boa noite.
Obrigada, viu? Bye, bye.
Boa noite.
Bye.